Imagine if one day you found a door that was connected to another world, and any items or skills you learn can be brought back to the real world. The story begins as a girl is being harassed by some men. However, we meet Yuya, a boy that tries to speak up against the men. But the men call him fat and ugly, and they end up beating him up. Eventually the police arrive, and the men run away. The girl thanks him for his help, but Yuya claims he is fine and walks away. We learn that he was taught by his grandfather to always be kind and to help those in need. When he gets home, we see his house is covered with graffiti, calling him names. We learn that ever since he was young, he has been bullied by everyone. Even his parents treated him poorly, because his siblings were considered beautiful, but he was ugly. And when he got to middle school, things got worse for him, as he would get beaten at school. It was only his grandfather who would look after him, always reminding him that being kind will make him happy. His grandfather eventually died, but he left his house and all his savings to him. His parents tried to contest the will, but in the end Yuya was given everything, but his parents completely abandoned him, so he lives alone and has to work part-time every day. At school, Yuya is graduating from middle school, but in his yearbook, there are only mean comments about him. As he tries to leave, he gets stopped by his bullies. They remind him that even though he is graduating, he is still their errand boy. Yuya says he needs to get to his job, but the bullies beat him up, and we see his brother and sister just watching from a distance. When he finally gets to his job, his boss is fed up with him being late and tells him not to come back. At home, Yuya has a depressing meal, and as he looks at himself in the mirror, he throws a tantrum and smashes the mirror, thinking nothing will change even after his graduation. He punches the wall, and it suddenly opens a hidden room. There are a bunch of strange items in the room, and Yuya thinks they must be his grandfather's souvenirs from traveling. He finds a peculiar door, and when he opens it, it leads to a strange room. He gets scared as a notification appears. As he reads it, he learns that the door is connected to another world. There are a number of notifications that tell him about various functions that are available to him, like the ability to store items, and he can control who can use the door. Although he is confused by the functions, he thinks the system is like a game, so he decides to check his status. But when he sees it, he is devastated to find all his stats are so low. He looks around the room, and when he looks outside, he finds that it really is another world. He finds a note on the table, although he can't read it at first. He has a language skill which helps him to understand it. He learns that the owner of the house was a great sage, but he is about to die, so he left it so that whoever finds it will become its new owner, including all of its contents. The house is protected by magic, so no one is able to break in beside the owner. He finds a bunch of weapons inside, but as he examines them, he finds them to be exceptional items and extremely dangerous. He has a look outside and tries swinging his sword around. He falls over, but he manages to learn a basic sword skill. Thinking it could be useful, Yuya trains with each of the weapons, finding that they are all god-tier items, and he gains a number of skills. Despite this, his stats still remain at level 1, and he wonders how to increase it. He puts the weapons away into his storage, but there is suddenly a monster that attacks. Yuya is terrified, but soon realizes that his house is protected. The monster is a level 300 bloody ogre, and it smashes against the magical wall. It grabs a tree, trying to use it to break in, but it doesn't work. Yuya thinks he should try fighting back, so he throws his spear, which goes right through the monster, and instantly kills it in one hit. The spear returns to him, and the monster disappears, dropping a number of items. Yuya suddenly reaches level 100, and he is shocked to see his stats. After allocating all his points, Yuya decides to call it for the day, and when he tries to leave, he gets a cash-out option, which converts the items from the monster into money. Yuya is confused seeing this, but gladly accepts it. Later that night, Yuya goes through a change in his body, as it completely transforms. And when he wakes up, he finds his body is different, and his clothes no longer fit. He's not sure what is going on, and his mirror is still broken, so he decides to look for some clothes. There are magical clothes in the sage's house, which freely adjust in size, and provide a range of magical bonuses. Yuya wonders about the identity of the sage, and he looks around his garden. He is suddenly attacked by a level 200 slime monster, but this time, Yuya calmly brings out his spear and easily destroys the monster. It drops some coffee slime and even a rare necklace, which has the ability to restore his magic power. He levels up again, gaining a presence detection skill, and he is already at level 150. He tries some of the coffee slime, and it's actually quite good. He decides to use some of the money he has made to buy a new uniform, ordering it to be ready for the start of high school. After that, he spent every day in the other world, and he starts to enjoy himself, even forgetting his depression. He would train and learn as much as possible about the other world. An elite goblin attacks his house, but Yuya has become completely different, skillfully fighting against it, and even using a skill to destroy the goblin. Time flies and the start of high school arrives, and everyone is immediately drawn by him. Even his siblings seem to be in awe. In class, he is approached by his bullies, but they don't recognize him, thinking he is a transfer student. When he tells them he is Yuya, everyone is shocked, and they don't believe him. When he goes to the bathroom, he is completely shocked to see himself for the first time since his transformation. After class, he is approached by his brother and sister, wondering what he did to change so drastically, calling him a loser, but there is suddenly a limo that stops, and the girl he saved is looking for him. He wonders who she is, and she reminds him how he saved her, and Yuya wonders how she knows his name. She admits she looked into him because she wanted to thank him, and she introduces herself as Kaori. She wonders if he would like to join the Osei Academy, and Yuya recognizes it as an academy for the super elite. We learn that Kaori is on the student council, and her father is the chairman of the academy. Yuya is flattered by the offer, but thinks he isn't smart enough to join such an academy. His brother interrupts, asking to join the academy, and saying that they are superior to Yuya in both academics and sports. But Kaori refuses, because they are insulting Yuya when he is her hero, and she reveals that she has already looked into them and knows all about their nefarious behavior against Yuya. She goes on to tell Yuya that their academy emphasizes personality rather than just academics, so it would be no problem for him to enroll. Her attendant suggests showing him the academy, so she pulls him away, and they head off, while his siblings can't believe what happened. They arrive at the academy, and it's a famous school filled with students that excel. He meets with the chairman Tsukasa, who thanks him for saving his daughter. Yuya says it wasn't a big deal, but Kaori says he was the only one that helped her. Tsukasa invites him to join the school, even offering to pay his tuition as thanks for helping his daughter. But Yuya is hesitant, thinking he won't fit in, because only geniuses are normally accepted. Tsukasa says that geniuses are just normal people that have found the right way to work hard and use less time, but Yuya thinks they are gifted with talent. Tsukasa tells him that everyone has their own talents, and through challenges and having fun, he will eventually learn what his talents are, saying that he is still young. He suggests Yuya to try out the school for a day. A teacher named Sawada enters, and Tsukasa introduces her as a renowned scientist, but her classes are popular and easy to understand. Yuya prepares for his first class, and worries he isn't over his head, but he thinks that things couldn't be worse than at his normal school. He gets called in, and he introduces himself, but all the students appear stunned. He worries about what they think of him, but they are all actually stunned by how handsome he looks. He takes a seat at the back, and he shares a book with the girl next to him, but she is a bit cold toward him, and he worries that she already hates him. Kaori wonders if Yuya will fit in his class, and as the class goes on, he actually finds the class pretty normal, except the students are much more active and engaged. During their break, a bunch of students try to get to know him, asking questions like if he is an idol, and if he has a girlfriend. A student named Rio stops them from harassing him, and he takes Yuya to the cafeteria to get some lunch. Yuya is amazed seeing the menu, and it's all free, so Yuya thinks it's like a dream. They sit with another student named Shingo. They start talking about anime, and Yuya is surprised they are just like him. As he eats, he notices that everyone is looking at him, and he thinks it's because he is wearing a different uniform. Shingo asks him if he is in any clubs, but Yuya says he is not a part of any. Rio is also not in a club. but it's because he is good at all kinds of sport and has trouble picking just one. Shingo reveals he is part of the gaming club, and Yuya is surprised there are allowed consoles at school, but Shingo says it's fine as long as they don't play during class, and as they talk about video games, Yuya becomes more comfortable with them. At the end of the day, he meets with Tsukasa and admits that he had a good time, and Yuya decides he wants to join the school. As he leaves the room, he runs into Kaori, who wonders if he is joining the school. He tells her his decision, and she is glad he decided to stay. She invites him to join her after school, and they check out some shops in a popular area. Yuya wonders if this is where she hangs out with her friends, but she reveals that she doesn't hang out too often, because people seem to be hesitant about her family and her father. But she says that he is different. Yuya gets nervous, so he suggests checking out the crepe shop. Looking at the prices, he is glad he has been cashing out from the other world. As they try the crepes, they both have a good time, and Yuya wants to try the other flavors, but he suddenly thinks that if he eats too much, he might return to his original shape. He asks Kaori how she recognized him when he looked so different, but she says that although he is a bit slimmer, she recognized him because his eyes still look the same. She offers him a bite of her crepe, since he wanted to try other flavors, so he takes a bite, but is a bit embarrassed. She suddenly realizes how he is feeling, but he also offers her a bite. She nervously accepts it, taking a bite, and some girls watch on, thinking they are super cute together. Later that night, Yuya decides to head back to the other world, putting on a full set of armor. He heads inside, confronting the monsters that appear. Even though he is still scared, he cuts them down, and sees he has leveled up to 235, but realizes that the speed he is leveling at has become much slower. So he thinks about leaving his house, to find stronger monsters to fight. Thinking of his time at the academy, Yuya wants to find a new challenge. But as he heads out his gate, he suddenly hears a scream. He pulls out his spear, and rushes toward the scream. He finds a number of soldiers that were brutally killed. He notices a monster, and it's a level 200 goblin general. Yuya can tell it is dangerous, but he sees a girl behind it. He throws his spear at it, but the goblin deflects it. However, in that moment, Yuya comes crashing down with his foot, and the goblin is defeated. He turns toward the girl, but she calls out to him, because there is another goblin behind him. He gets blown away, and he can tell that it is both stronger and faster than him. But Yuya doesn't give up, thinking he has other strengths. He uses his spear to vault over the goblin, and he switches to his bow, launching a barrage of arrows. He then switches again to his sword, and splits the goblin in half. He checks up on the girl, wondering about the other humans in this world, but she ends up fainting, and he hears some men approaching, so he uses an invisibility skill to avoid them. There are knights that come looking for the girl, and we learn she is a princess named Lexia. Back at his house, Yuya thinks about the encounter, wondering if the girl was okay. But since there were knights that appeared to help her, he thinks she should be okay. Looking at his shirt, he thinks that he should try buying some new clothes, since he has made some money from the other world. We see a mall, and as Yuya walks around, people stare at him, thinking he must be some kind of actor or model. His shirt is enchanted to stay clean, but he thinks he should buy some other clothes, so he doesn't always look the same. Meanwhile, we see a director yelling at another man. The man is the manager for a model named Sho, but Sho hasn't turned up for their shoot. The manager gets a call from Sho, and learns he is on his way. But the director gets mad, because Sho isn't respecting the time of everyone there, who are all ready for the shoot. Especially Miyu, their other model who has been waiting all morning. The theme of the photo shoot is focused around being a couple, so it's impossible to shoot it without him. The director thinks about what they should do, and since everyone is waiting around to start, he decides to look for a replacement within the mall. As Yuya shops around, he is overwhelmed by the number of choices. He is approached by some girls, and he worries it's a sales tactic. They ask to know more about him, and even offer to help him shop. He doesn't want them to feel bad, so he turns them down as politely as possible. The girls are left stunned, and they start freaking out over him, but Yuya wonders if he dealt with them in the right way. The director struggles to find a replacement, but tells his assistant they can't give up. They pass by Yuya, and the director instantly thinks he is the one. Yuya gets approached, and the director explains their situation to him. Yuya is nervous to do it, but he thinks about all the people who are counting on him, and he ends up agreeing to be their model. He acts as the boyfriend for their shoot, taking photos in a range of different outfits and positions. The director tells him to look sexier, but Yuya struggles with the direction. But Miyu tells him he is doing well for his first time, and Yuya is captured by her looks. She thanks him for saving them, but Yuya notices her getting closer to him. The director notes that Yuya is looking kind of stiff. They move to their next location, and Yuya is impressed at Miyu for being such a pro, even though they are around the same age, so he is determined to give it his best. But Miyu grabs onto him for the next shot, and he panics as she pushes up against him. The director tells her to get even closer, so she puts her arms around him and pushes up even closer, which makes Yuya even more embarrassed, and a crowd starts to watch them. Meanwhile, in the other world, we see Princess Lexia as she thinks about how she was saved. She decides to head out, and her knight wonders where she is going. She says she is heading back to the Dark Forest to find the person who saved her, but her knight says it's impossible for someone to be living out in that forest. But Lexia insists she was saved by someone and must thank the person who saved her. Her knight warns her of the dangers of going back, but she tells them they are all going to join her this time, and they wonder who she inherited such reckless behavior from. Back at the mall, the shoot is over, and Yuya is exhausted. Miyu thanks him once again, and Yuya suddenly chokes on his drink. Miyu offers him her handkerchief, but Yuya worries because he is sweaty, but he can't use his sleeve either, because the clothes aren't his. Yuya thinks about his experience modeling, and thinks Miyu is amazing at it, but Miyu says she has just gotten used to it, mentioning how she used to make lots of mistakes when she was still new. He thinks about how it's his first time wearing such fashionable clothes, because he never had the chance in his past. He wonders why she started modeling, and she says she just wanted to be noticed, because her parents were always too busy to spend time with her, and then after she started getting some fans, she continued because she had people cheering her along, and she liked that she could bring happiness to the people that saw her. She tells him he can also do it, saying he should take it at his own pace, and reminds him to just enjoy all the moments along the way. As they chat, the director takes a bunch of candid pictures of them, but at that moment, shows suddenly arise, and the crowd is excited to see him. He approaches Miyu, saying they can get on with their shoot. He pushes her up against the wall, wanting to ask her out for drinks, but Yuya can see she is uncomfortable. He interrupts them, and Sho wonders who he is. Sho tries to punch him, but Yuya throws him away. Everyone is shocked, and Yuya thinks about how slow the punch felt. He worries about causing a scene, thinking he will be in trouble for beating up such a good-looking guy, but the crowd cheers for him, thinking he is so cool. Sho wonders how he lost, even though he does boxing. The director tells him to leave, because they caught everything in 4K. Sho runs off, and Miyu thanks him for his help, revealing that Sho has been following her around, and she didn't know what to do about it. But the director says that Sho's behavior has always been bad, and with this, he is unlikely to work again. He wonders if Yuya is interested in doing more modeling. Yuya thanks him for giving him the opportunity to work with so many professionals, but he thinks he isn't good enough to do the job properly, so he ultimately turns them down. The director respects his decision, and they end up giving him all the clothes from the shoot as thanks for his help, because they weren't able to pay him since he is just an amateur. Yuya thinks having the experience was enough, but the director says it's only natural to be compensated for work, especially since he was the one who saved them, so Yuya accepts it. Miyu hopes to work with him again in the future, and they wish him good luck. In their car afterwards, the director thinks it's a shame that Yuya didn't want to continue, knowing he would have been a star. Looking back at the photos, Miyu thinks about how different Yuya was, and the director can see her turning red, so he teases her about having a thing for him. Yuya organizes his wardrobe, packing all of his new clothes, and we see that his photo has gotten around. The agencies wonder who he could be, and we see a woman who is desperate to sign him, ordering her associate to find him before any other agencies get to him. Seeing how he was able to stand up next to Miyu when he is just an amateur, she is determined not to let him get away. Meanwhile, in the other world, we see Lexia's knights fighting against some goblins. The knights are struggling, and there is suddenly a goblin that appears behind her, but the goblin is defeated, as Yuya makes his appearance. They are shocked to see him, and Yuya effortlessly slays the goblins. Lexia is glad to see he is real, and Yuya finishes off the goblins. He treats one of the knights, and Lexia approaches him, saying she came to the dark forest because she had something to tell him. Yuya wonders what she wants, and she suddenly asks if he will marry her, causing them all to be shocked. Her knight wonders what she is thinking, reminding her of her position as a princess, saying they know nothing about Yuya, but Lexia insists it's love at first sight. The two start arguing, but Yuya interrupts, saying it's dangerous in the forest, so he invites them back to his house, which is a surprise for them, to learn he actually lives in the forest. They are amazed to see his house, and the knight introduces himself as Owen, the captain of the Arzelia Knights, and he introduces Lexia as the first princess of Arzelia, mentioning that she is second in line for the throne. She thanks him for saving them once again, and Yuya starts to worry about his behavior, after learning she is a princess. But they tell him not to worry, since it's not an official visit, and he is their savior. Yuya introduces himself, but they find his name strange, and think he could be from another country. Lexia fantasizes about him being royalty from another country, but Owen worries about other possibilities. Owen reveals that they were there to look for him, because the first time he saves Lexia, she didn't get the chance to thank him. She says she has been thinking about him ever since that day, saying that it's the first time she has ever felt that way, and she asks him to marry her once again. Yuya is overwhelmed, and thinks the proposal is just too sudden, making the princess think that love can't be so simple. Thinking about every romance novel she has read, love needs to come with obstacles, and it would be boring if things went so smoothly. So she asks to start out as his friend. Yuya gets nervous, thinking about his past experiences, but agrees to be her friend. Owen mentions there is one other reason they are there, and that is the king would like him to visit the royal palace, so that he can also offer his gratitude in person. Yuya is hesitant, but Owen says it's a royal command, and he can't leave until Yuya agrees. So Yuya has no choice but to accept the invitation. Owen mentions that it will take about 5 days including travel, but Yuya thinks it would interrupt starting at his new school, so he asks to delay the meeting, but Owen says that they are happy to wait for him whenever he decides to go. They take their leave, and Lexia tells him to prepare himself, because she plans to win his heart the next time they meet. Somewhere in the royal capital, we see a man reporting about their failed attempt on Lexia's life. We see a masked man, and we learn that he had sent assassins after Lexia, but they ended up in the dark forest, and the assassins were taken out by monsters. But the masked man wonders how Lexia managed to return unharmed, and warns his man not to fail him again. He takes off his mask, revealing a disfigured face, and we learn he is part of the royal family, as he swears to get his revenge on Lexia. Back at Yuya's house, he marks his calendar for when he plans to see the king. He puts on his new uniform and leaves to start his first day at the academy. Everyone stares at him as he walks, thinking he must be some kind of famous model. When he arrives, the director greets him, but apologizes because he doesn't have time to talk, but tells Yuya to remember to just enjoy himself at the school. Yuya is introduced to the class as an official student, and we see Ryo and Shingo who are happy to see him. We cut to a soccer game, and we meet a student named Roy. He scores a goal, and all the girls cheer for him. Yuya watches from the sidelines, impressed at his skill, and he is approached by a girl named Kaide. She wonders why he doesn't join the game, but Yuya says he doesn't have his gym clothes yet. We see Roy as he goes up against the opposing team himself, but he tricks them, passing the ball to his teammate Akira. Akira rushes at the goal, preparing to use his special move, but he messes up, and kicks it straight at Kaide. However, Yuya manages to stop it, and even scores a goal in the process. Everyone is shocked, wondering how he moves so quickly. He checks to see if Kaide is okay, but she is left stunned by his riz. Akira comes rushing over to apologize, swearing to become her servant, but Kaide says she is okay, and turns him down. Ryo vouches for Akira, saying he is just a bit quirky, and Akira thanks him for saving the both of them. Later on, we see Kaori, as she goes to get changed for gym class. All the girls are talking about Yuya, thinking he is like a prince. Kaide tells her about everything that happened, and the girls think he must have a girlfriend since he is so cool. but Kaori and Kaide both insist that nothing has been confirmed. During his next class, Yuya waves to Kaori, who is down on the field. But suddenly, some delinquents come bursting in on motorbikes. They surround the girls, swinging their bats, and all the students check out the commotion. They recognize the group as the Red Ogres, the most dangerous delinquent group in the area. Yuya recognizes them, and sees his siblings with the group. Kaori wonders what they are doing at their school, and Yuya's brother Yuta points her out as the director's daughter. Kaori recognizes the two of them, and they say they are there to get back at her for looking down on them and accepting Yuya into the academy. Kaori warns them that the police are on the way, but Yuya's sister Sora thinks they have time before they show up, so they plan to abduct her as payback. The goons surround her, and things are looking bad. Yuya wants to save her, but finds his legs shaking. Even though he has fought far stronger opponents in the other world, he has emotional damage facing the bullies. His friends worry about him as he panics, but he manages to snap himself out of it. He opens the window and jumps out, shocking everyone since they are on the 4th floor, but Yuya lands unarmed. He charges in, confronting his old bully Araki, who says it's time to teach him a lesson. He sends his boys at Yuya, but he easily dodges all their attacks and disarms them all in an instant. Araki tries to attack, but Yuya runs right past him, focusing on saving Kaori. But he is stopped by an enormous guy named Amori. The guy charges at him, but Yuya doesn't even budge, and he throws him to the side. Yuya gets to Kaori, checking to see if she is okay, but the boss of the gang charges at Yuya. Yuya manages to dodge, but the boss attacks with his bike. Yuya jumps out of the way, and the guy ends up losing control and crashing his bike. The boss is knocked out, and the police arrive. All the delinquents are arrested, and the students are told to get back to their classes. Yuya makes sure Kaori is okay, and she suddenly becomes weak, but Yuya catches her, and they share a moment. Meanwhile, Yuya thinks that the Red Ogres were useless, but he suddenly gets choked by the boss, who blames him for their situation. Sora begs for him, but she just gets kicked away, and Yuya continues to be choked. But Yuya gets in the way, breaking them up, and Yuya thanks him. The boss charges at him, but Yuya just stares him down. The students wonder what happened, but everything settles down, and Yuya wonders why he saved him. But Yuya says that even though they have been terrible to him, they are still his family, so he couldn't just abandon them. His brother is moved to tears, and they beg for his forgiveness, apologizing for everything they have ever done. He is joined by his friends, and he apologizes for the trouble that occurred because of him, but they are all amazed by him, wondering how he could jump out the window. Yuya goes to do some exploring in the other world, but remembers a warning from Owen, telling him that the Dark Forest is considered the most dangerous region in the lands, with monsters so strong that they would easily be able to destroy a city, so Yuya wonders about the sage who used to own the house. He explores deeper into the forest, looking for stronger monsters to face, when he suddenly hears a cry, and sees a puppy being attacked by an orc. The puppy glows with a dark energy, but it's too weak to fight. Yuya watches from a distance, and sees that the orc is a level 600 orc king, with over 20,000 attack. Yuya thinks he doesn't stand a chance, so he gives up on saving it, but the orc continues beating the dog, stomping on its body. Yuya can't bring himself to just leave it, thinking about what his grandfather would do. So he decides to help, thinking he might be able to just distract the orc. He charges at it, but actually took it out with a single shot, and he starts to get embarrassed after taking so long to work up the courage, only to have things end so easily. But he thinks back to the ogre he defeated when he was still at level 1, and he starts to wonder about the sage who created such insane weapons. He checks on the dog, but it growls at him. He offers it a potion, but it ends up passing out. He quickly treats the dog, and it starts to take a liking to him. He tries talking to it, and he learns that it's all alone with nowhere to go, so he offers to take it in. The dog happily agrees, and Yuya suddenly gets the taming skill, making the dog his new companion. He checks out its stats, and finds that it's actually a level 500 Black Fenrir, and he is impressed by its stats. He thinks about giving it a name, and looking at its black fur, he decides to call it Knight, who happily jumps onto him. They head back to his house, and he checks out the items dropped by the Orc King. There's an S-ranked magic stone and the sword and armor used by the Orc King. But the gear can't be used by humans, but it's possible for them to be reforged. There's also a rare brush, which has the ability to stimulate hair growth, but he uses it to brush Knight. He checks out his own stats, and finds he is still at level 235. He finds it strange he didn't level up, even after defeating a level 600 monster, but he thinks he will work out the leveling system eventually. Back in the real world, he leaves Knight in his house as he goes to school. He asks his friends if there are any pet shops around, revealing that he just adopted a dog. Kaide gets excited hearing this, asking to see pictures, but Yuya gets nervous with her getting so close. She apologizes, and Yuya says he doesn't have any pictures, because he doesn't even have a smartphone. His friends find him a bit weird for this, but he just says he never really needed one. They tell him about the nearby pet shop, but they say they aren't free to go with him after school. But Kaide offers to take him. Yuya thanks her for helping, but she starts thinking it could be like a date, but she tells him not to worry about it. When he gets home, Knight rushes to him, and Yuya shows him the different items that Kaide helped him pick out from the shop. He gives Knight his new collar, and he decides they should go for a walk. They go to the park, but everyone stares at him, thinking he looks so cool, and that Knight is so cute. He ends up running into Kaori, and he introduces Knight to her. She starts petting him, and finds him adorable, while the onlookers think they are a perfect couple. Kaori asks him about Knight's breed, but he pretends he doesn't know, since he can't say it's a Fenrir. But Kaori can tell he is super smart, and happy that Yuya adopted him. A girl calls out to Yuya, and it turns out to be Miyu, the model he worked with. It turns out she also lives around the area, and comes to the park to walk. Yuya introduces the girls, and the people are amazed to see him with another beautiful girl. They start to draw even more attention, as people start to recognize Miyu. Not wanting to cause a scene, Miyu decides to leave, but looks forward to running into him again. After she leaves, Kaori wonders if Miyu is his girlfriend, but Yuya is shocked, saying that he has only met her once before, and that she would be too good for him, but Kaori doesn't agree with him. A woman suddenly screams, as a man runs away with her purse. Kaori wonders what they should do, and Yuya tells Knight to go after the man. They check up on the old lady, and Knight soon returns, dragging the man back. Yuya tells Kaori to call the police, but the man gets free, charging at Kaori to stop her. But Yuya gets in the way, easily disarming and restraining him. The crowd cheers for him, thinking he is so cool, and Kaori thanks him for saving her once again. They hand the man over to the police, and Yuya heads home. Yuya continues exploring deeper into the dark forest. Together with Knight, they encounter countless monsters. They come across another Orc King, but this time, Knight shows off his skills, biting its neck and taking it out all by himself. As they continue, they come across a crystal deer, which is at level 630. Yuya observes it while invisible, and sees that it has an impressive magic stat. He wonders how he should approach it, but it suddenly detects him, even through his invisibility, so he has no time to think. It charges at them, so the two split up. Knight tries to attack, but the deer uses magic, creating an explosion to defend itself. It charges up another attack, firing a blast of water at Yuya, but he manages to dodge it. Yuya thinks they need to work together, so he tells Knight to create an opening for him. Knight jumps around the deer with its speed, but the deer retaliates with its magic, causing countless explosions in the area. But Knight manages to land a hit, and Yuya takes the chance to finish it off. He checks out the item drops, and there is a box that catches his attention. As he examines it, it turns out to be a portable bath set that automatically stays clean, and even has a privacy feature to stop people from looking in. He is amazed to find such an item, and decides to try it out, finding that there are multiple settings he can choose from. It's too dangerous to use it in the middle of the forest, so he decides to return to his house for the night, and has a relaxing bath with Knight. The next day, they fight against a needle roller, which has exceptional speed. He struggles at first, but he manages to predict its movements, and dodge its attack, causing it to get stuck in a wall, and he takes it out. He finally levels up to 240, and Knight also reaches level 510. The wall suddenly cracks, where the monster had crashed into it, and a cave is revealed, so they decide to check it out. Yuya scans for enemies, but there are no signs of any monsters. The cave suddenly lights up, as they reach a larger room. As they look around, Yuya is shocked to find a body, but Knight points out a book on the floor. Yuya checks it out, and it turns out to be the Book of the Sage. As Yuya reads the book, he learns that the sage was able to do everything, mastering every kind of skill and becoming as powerful as a god. The gods even asked him to join them, but he declined their invitation. The book starts talking to Yuya, warning him that as he gets stronger, the people around him will begin to fear him. Yuya wonders how he can prevent that from happening, and he suddenly hears the voice of the sage, telling him to find people he can trust. The sage asks him if there is anything he would like to know, and Yuya asks to learn magic. So the sage fills the book with all of his knowledge about magic. But he notes that Yuya can't use magic, because he doesn't have the magical circuits in his body, since he is from another world. However, the sage decides to pass on his own magical circuits to Yuya, telling Yuya to find happiness and to live a good life. Yuya returns to his house, and starts learning how to use magic from the book. He starts off by sensing the magical energy around him, and he learns the magic energy manipulation skill. He learns that all he needs to do is to gather magical energy in his hand, and just imagine the magic he wants to use. So he goes outside to try it out, imagining a ball of water, and it seems Knight is also learning. He tries shooting the ball at a tree, and it turns out to be ridiculously strong, blowing straight through the tree. Meanwhile at the royal capital, Owen gives his report to the king. He tells the king about Yuya, but when he mentions how the princess proposed to him, the king loses it, thinking Yuya seduced his daughter. Back at the school, Yuya daydreams, thinking about the sage's book, warning him about using magic, because the techniques he is learning are not commonly known, even in the other world. The teacher reminds them that they will be going camping the following week, and sorts them into groups of 4. Yuya is put in a group with Kaide, along with Akira, and a girl named Rin. Kaide is excited for the trip, but Yuya mentions he doesn't really have any camping equipment, so Kaide suggests that they go shopping. They head to the mall, where Shingo is surprised to see Kaori joining them. Ryo also can't believe Yuya is friends with Kaori, because most people find her unapproachable, since she is the director's daughter, but she tells them just to think of her as any other student. Yuya wonders where Akira is, and Shingo mentions how he couldn't make it. They head inside, and they help Yuya pick out a backpack. They decide to hang out, and they end up at an arcade. Shingo gets excited seeing his favorite character in a crane game, but says he is terrible at the game. Yuya decides to give it a go. Using his detect weakness skill, he finds the weak spot, and manages to win the figure in a single try. Kaide asks him to win her a cat, so he uses his skill again, and easily wins it for her. He ends up winning prizes for all his friends, and Kaori says it was her first time at an arcade, thanking him for his gift. The girls decide to do some shopping for clothes, so the guys have a break and go to the cafe for a drink. Yuya thinks about how much fun he had, being able to hang out with friends for the first time. But an alarm suddenly rings, as they are told there is a fire, and they need to evacuate. Yuya worries about the girls, thinking that the fire would be closer to them. They reach the staircase, and Yuya asks the man if he has seen his friends. Ryo gets a call from Kaide, who tells them they are still stuck upstairs. Yuya rushes up the stairs, thinking about his friends, and he reaches the source of the fire. The sprinklers aren't enough to put it out, so Yuya thinks it's time to use his magic. He covers his body with a layer of water, allowing him to run right through the flames. We see the girls unconscious from the smoke, while Yuya rushes to find them. He manages to make it to them just in time, and he wonders if there is anyone else. He uses his detection skill to scan the building, and it seems they are the only ones left. He covers the girls with his magic, but the fire surges, and he worries they won't make it out. Meanwhile, Ryo and Shingo watch from outside, telling the officers that their friends are still inside, but there is nothing they can do until they fight the fire. Yuya runs around looking for the exit, but the roof collapses, and as he dodges, Kaori drops the gift he gave her. He reaches a dead end, and he realizes there is no way out, so he uses his magic to smash through the building and make his own exit. The building shakes, but Yuya manages to make it out with the girls. The girls get treated, and the firefighters reprimand him for being so reckless. Kaori's father arrives, thanking him for saving his daughter again, and Yuya returns the otter pin he picked up. Kaori hugs her father, and Yuya thinks about what a family should be like. But he thinks that he doesn't really have anyone like that. But when he gets home, Night rushes to him, and he realizes they are family. Yuya thinks about what else he can do with magic, remembering that magic is just the materialization of his imagination. So he thinks about using it to travel, focusing on where he wants to go, and he manages to open a portal, which takes him deep into the dark forest. He is excited that it works, but it seems he can only use it to go to places he has already been. But he thinks he can use it to get home to feed Night, even when he goes on his school trip. They take the chance to do some more exploring, and they discover a cave, which happens to contain some goblins. But using his legendary sword, they are no match for him, and they find a whole bunch of rare items, storing them all away with his storage skill, and he thinks that his teamwork with Night is improving. They leave the cave, and Yuya thinks they should call it for the day, but Night gets sad, wanting to continue. Yuya says he needs to get back so that he can prepare for his school trip, but Night suddenly runs off. Yuya goes after him, and it seems Night detects something up ahead. So Yuya uses his invisibility skill to be careful, and he continues ahead. He comes across a girl that is injured, and is facing a number of goblins. Yuya wants to save her, but Night pulls him back. The elite goblin attacks, smashing down a tree, but there seem to be some threads that get in the way, and the girl attacks, cutting off the goblin's arm. Yuya wonders about the threads, but the goblins suddenly jump at the girl. She blocks their attack with her threads, but the elite goblin lands a hit on her, and it seems to knock her out. As the goblin approaches her, Yuya emerges, and together with Night, they take out the goblins. But there are suddenly countless other goblins that appear, so Yuya decides to use his divine whip, which binds all of the goblins, crushing them all in a single attack. And he thinks it's just too overpowered, because it can attack multiple targets at once, and it can never miss. After the fight, he wonders what he should do with the girl. He thinks about taking her back to his house, but it seems Night thinks it's a bad idea. He doesn't want to just leave the girl, but she suddenly wakes up, surprised she is being carried, and she ends up falling to the ground. Yuya offers her his healing juice, and it's able to instantly heal all of her injuries. The girl is surprised how effective it was, and wonders who he is. So Yuya introduces himself, as well as Night, but Night is hostile towards her, and Yuya wonders why. We learn that the girl's name is Luna, and she says she was training in the forest, but she was surprised by the elite goblin, and ended up getting into trouble. She wonders what happened to them, but Yuya tells her that he took them out. She asks what he is doing in the forest, and he ends up saying that he was also training. But the girl is surprised to hear this for some reason. Since Yuya was the one who carried her to safety, Luna apologizes to him for being so filthy and covered with sweat, but Yuya says it's okay. She wonders if there is a river nearby where she can rinse off, but Yuya brings out his bath. He keeps watch outside, and Luna can't believe he has such a rare item. Yuya mentions how he got it from a crystal deer, and Luna is impressed he could defeat such a monster. Yuya thinks it's normal for the dark forest, but Luna reveals she is actually there on a client's request, although Yuya doesn't hear this. Luna asks him to accompany her with her training. Since they are both training in the forest, she wants to train with him. Yuya feels bad about leaving her to train alone, so he ends up agreeing to join her. After that, we see them training together, as Yuya helps her practice, but she also teaches him as well. They both manage to get stronger, and we see Luna as she takes out a goblin with her threads. Yuya compliments her for being an elite, but she says she still has a long way to go, saying she needs to get even stronger so she can complete her mission. Yuya tells her he has to go, trying to explain that he has a school trip, but it doesn't really make sense to her, so he just apologizes, but she thanks him for all his help. After the last day of training, Yuya relaxes with a bath, but Luna suddenly joins him, wanting to share it with him. Yuya gets embarrassed, but Luna grabs onto him, telling him how much the time with him has meant to her, and saying that she will treasure it. She thanks him once again, offering to wash his back, but her towel suddenly drops, and Yuya becomes embarrassed. His class heads off on their school trip, and we see Yuya playing cards with his friends. Kaide thinks he looks tired, and Yuya admits he didn't get much sleep the previous night. Yuya wins the game, and they can't believe he just won 5 times in a row. But Yuya thinks the game should just be luck. Yuya decides to take a nap, and he thinks that he kept winning because he put a lot of points into his luck stat, thinking that the incident with Luna could have also been because of his luck. Yuya is woken up as they arrive at their destination. The students get changed, and their teacher explains that they have to go camping for 2 days and must find a way to survive off the land, telling them that there are fish in the river and plants that they could eat. Kaede worries that the plants could be poisonous, but Sawada tells them the school doctor is on standby, although the students find her creepy because they always hear screams coming from her office. Akira thinks they could just go without food for a day, but Sawada says it's all a part of the lesson, mentioning that it's a competition between the classes. Yuya wonders if there is a reward for the winners, but Sawada reveals it affects her bonus, so she tells them to do their best, but the students are not impressed. The students are left in the forest, and Yuya wonders what they should do first. Akira thinks it will be easy to survive, but the other 3 just ignore him, thinking he is a fool. Rin suggests that Yuya and Kaede try fishing, while she and Akira look for some edible plants. We see that all the students are by the river, and Kaede thinks they were too slow. They see Ryo by the water, and he warns them that all the good spots are already gone. Kaede wonders if they should try something else, but Yuya uses his detection skill and manages to find another spot. There are lots of fish in the area, but Kaede thinks the water is too shallow, so their fishing pole won't be effective. But Yuya has another plan, and he gets into the water. He thinks that compared to the monsters in the dark forest, the fish are not as fast. He thinks about what he learned from Luna, about how to predict a monster's behavior, and he manages to catch a fish with his hand. Kaede is impressed seeing this, and Yuya continues to catch all the fish. The other students think he is crazy, and Kaede thinks he has caught too many. Yuya admits he got carried away, and he thinks about thanking Luna for her advice. Meanwhile, in the dark part of a town, we see a shop filled with puppets. Luna uses her thread, cutting off all their heads, and she notes that her power has improved. She thinks about her time with Yuya, but we learn she is actually an assassin, and has been killing ever since she was a child. But she finds Yuya different, wishing she could have met him sooner, so that her life might have turned out differently, but she knows she needs to forget about him, because she is the one known as the headhunter, and she prepares for her next target. Yuya and Kaede meet back up with Rin, showing her their haul, and she is surprised to hear Yuya caught all the fish with just his hands. Yuya wonders what happened to Akira, who is down on the ground, and he complains that Rin used him to test mushrooms to see if they were poisonous, and used him as a decoy to lure away bears. Yuya gets worried for him, checking his stats to see if he was poisoned, but is relieved to see he is okay. Rin and Akira show all the plants that they managed to gather, and Yuya appraises them all with his skill, getting rid of some poisonous mushrooms. They head over to the building to show their teacher what they managed to collect, and we see other students as they get their food checked to make sure there is nothing poisonous. Yuya runs into Kaori, who asks him how his team is going. They talk about how they are finding the experience, until Kaori is called by her team. Akira is surprised at how close he is with her, wishing he could be more like Yuya. The team shows their haul to Sawada, and she compliments them for being the first team to bring back such a large amount of safe-to-eat food. She gets excited thinking about her bonus, but mentions they are also going to be graded for their cooking. She asks who plans to cook, and everyone points at Yuya. Sawada encourages him to do his best, telling him her bonus relies on him, but Yuya thinks she shouldn't be so transparent about her motives. Yuya starts preparing the food. Thanks to his time living alone and cooking in the other world, he manages to prepare quite an impressive meal. The team digs in, and Yuya waits to see their reaction, but Sawada comes along after doing some drinking, and she is surprised to see the food they're eating. She tries some of the food as well, and Yuya gets nervous wondering how they like it, but they end up finding it amazing. Sawada says that even though their meals are prepared by first-rate chefs at the school, she finds his cooking even better, wondering how it's even possible. Yuya thinks how he only cooked for himself since he was alone, but is happy to see people enjoying his food. After the meal, Sawada asks if he would marry her, which surprises everyone. She reveals she can't cook or clean, because she was always focused on her research and she has never been in a relationship before. And after eating his food, she thinks he is a catch, asking him to marry her and take care of her. Everyone tells her it's a bad idea, and Kaide even says Yuya is no good. But this makes him think he must be a failure as a person. But Sawada insists on marrying him, even saying she would wait for him. Yuya gets nervous, thinking it's not appropriate since she is his teacher, but tells her he thinks she is a good teacher. Sawada is happy hearing this, smothering him with her chest, while Kaide tries to pull him away, and Akira thinks he is the luckiest guy in the world. Later that night, Yuya teleports back to his house to check up on Knight. Using some food from his storage, he quickly fixes Knight some dinner. As he watches Knight eat, he thinks about how he enjoys making others happy with his food. He teleports back to the camp, where everyone is taking a shower together. Everyone stares at him, and Yuya wonders what's going on. Akira points out his body is ridiculous, and Yuya wonders what's wrong with it. But Akira can't believe how good-looking he is, as well as being insanely ripped. Meanwhile in the girls' bathroom, Rin teases Kaide, saying all the boys must be into her, but they run into Kaori, and mention how Sawada wanted to marry Yuya. Kaori is surprised hearing this, and the girls think Sawada has a certain advantage. Kaide seems to be inspired to make a move on Yuya as well. Kaori wonders if she is into Yuya, but she quickly denies it. Rin thinks she is too obvious, but Kaori wonders about Yuya's preference in girls. The next morning, some of the students find their belongings trashed, wondering if it might have been a thief. Akira has a worried look, while Yuya checks that all their belongings are still there. The group decides to look around for breakfast, but Akira gets scared, seeing scratch markings on a tree. Yuya remembers how Akira said he was used to lure away bears, and he realizes what's going on. As he looks around, the bear suddenly appears before the girls, and they quickly run away. The bear chases after them, and all the students panic. Sawada signals the group to take cover with her. The bear runs into the table, and Sawada tells them to get to safety. As they run, Sawada falls down, and the bear lunges at her, but Yuya gets in the way. He wrestles with the bear, throwing it to the ground, and knocking it out. He checks up on Sawada, who tells him she would normally lecture him about fighting a bear, but since he saved her life, she decides to let him off the hook, even offering to marry him once again, which he politely declines. Yuya wonders what's going to happen to the bear, and Kaori ends up explaining they will take it in as a guard bear, and if it attacks people again, they will just eat him, and the bear seems to understand. So the issue is resolved, and the camping trip comes to an end. Back at his house, we see that Yuya is scheduled to meet the king in the other world, with Lexia on the way to meet him. He finds a group of demons in the forest, thinking it would be bad if Lexia's group ran into them, so he decides to take them out. Knight slashes at one of them, and Yuya throws his spear, but the demon catches it. So he swaps to a hammer, which completely squishes the demon, while clearing the area around him, causing him to be impressed by the sage's weapons once again. The demon drops an interesting-looking helmet, and Yuya tries it on, but we see a strange-looking rabbit that watches him, thinking he is the one, but Lexia's party approaches. Owen is worried seeing him, and Yuya realizes it's because of his helmet, so he quickly takes it off, and they are glad to see him once again. They ask if he is ready to meet the king, and they formally invite him to join them to the palace, but Knight suddenly jumps on Lexia, as a tree suddenly falls, and Yuya slashes it in half. Yuya notices the threads that Luna would use, and realizes Knight was protecting the princess. Owen wonders what is going on, and we see Luna cursing herself for failing, but as she tries to get away, she is attacked by Yuya and gets knocked out. Yuya is surprised that it's really Luna, and Lexia joins him, wondering who she is. He tells her Luna was the one who tried to attack her, and he realizes Knight knew all along. Yuya asks to heal her wounds, and take her back to his house, so he can ask her what is going on, not wanting to believe she is a bad person. Lexia grants his request, as Owen comes rushing over, telling her not to run off on her own, but she tells him she is going to pay a visit to Yuya's house. Yuya wonders if she is sure, and Lexia says she is also curious about why she was attacked, and about the relationship he has with her. So Yuya decides to use his teleportation to get back faster, and Owen is left behind. Lexia is surprised by the teleportation, and they wait for Luna to wake up. Yuya explains how he met Luna in the forest, and how they even trained together, but Lexia is more interested in the teleportation spell he used to get back to the house. Yuya says he just thought about using magic for transportation, and just ended up creating it. Lexia can't believe him, and tells him that teleportation magic is regarded as something from a fairy tale, and there has never been anyone who was confirmed to be able to use it. She warns him that if anyone were to find out he can use it, it could even lead to a war, so she makes him promise not to use it in front of people without thinking first. She suddenly calls out Luna, asking her how long she intends to pretend to sleep. Luna gets up, realizing she is busted, and Lexia notes how Yuya also knew she was faking, but he was just being nice and playing along. Lexia asks her about her story, but Luna thinks there is no point and tells her to just kill her. But Yuya asks about her story as well, so Luna explains how she was an orphan that scavenged just to survive, but she was eventually taken in by a man who taught her how to read and write, as well as the ways of assassination, and she eventually joined the Dark Guild. Yuya is curious about the Dark Guild, and Lexia explains they are an organization responsible for orchestrating all kinds of crimes. Luna goes on to say how she has completed countless assassinations, and even became known as the Headhunter. Lexia is surprised hearing this, having heard of the name. Yuya wonders if Knight knew all along, and he realizes that that was the reason why he was aggressive toward her in the beginning. Luna reveals her assignment to assassinate Lexia, but now that she has failed, her death is guaranteed, because she will either get executed, or the Dark Guild will send assassins after her for her failure. Yuya gets worried for her, but Luna wonders why he cares, since they only spent a brief time together. But Yuya says that even though their time together was short, it meant a lot to him, so he sees her as a friend. Luna thinks it's already too late for her, but Lexia interrupts, telling her to work for her instead, and become her bodyguard. Luna wonders what she is saying, and Lexia explains that since only she and Yuya know about the assassination attempt, they can just keep it a secret, and if she is the princess's guard, it would be harder for the Dark Guild to get to her. Luna thinks she is insane, saying she is a criminal, thinking of all the people she has killed, and that her hands are stained with blood. But Lexia tells her she has pretty hands, wondering how they are so soft, and she says it was thanks to Yuya's bath. She continues to decline, but Lexia tells her off, saying that since she failed to kill her, she is the loser, and must now follow her orders, and Luna has no choice but to accept the job. Meanwhile, we see Owen as he and his soldiers are running away from goblins. His men can't keep going, so they are forced to retreat, and leave Lexia's protection up to Yuya. Luna can't believe how things turned out, thinking Lexia is a tyrant, but as her first order, she demands to hear more about Yuya's bath. So Luna explains that Yuya has a rare bath item that can create a bath anywhere, and helps with recovering from fatigue, but it also has positive effects on beauty. Lexia thinks it sounds incredible, demanding to use it as well. She decides to take a bath with Luna, inviting Yuya to join them as well, but he nervously declines, and she calls it a shame. The girls enjoy the bath together, finding it relaxing, but Lexia suddenly asks if Luna likes Yuya, and Luna says they are just friends. Lexia says she can tell she likes him, but Luna denies it, telling her she is imagining things. So Lexia tells her plan to marry him, and Luna objects to the idea. Lexia points out she shouldn't have a problem if they were just friends, and Luna isn't sure how she feels. But Lexia suddenly issues her a declaration of war, saying she is definitely in love with Yuya, so they will bow over him, and she will be the winner if she can marry Yuya. Luna is confused hearing this, but thinking about Yuya getting taken away, she accepts the vow, wanting Yuya for herself, and Lexia declares that from that moment, Luna will be both her guard and her rival. After their bath, Yuya thinks they should make some dinner. Lexia offers to cook, but she struggles trying to cut a single potato, even losing her knife, and almost causing an accident, so Yuya ends up cooking the meal instead. The girls find the food delicious, and Lexia compliments him, but Luna gets jealous seeing this, and asks Yuya to feed her, saying that she has trouble moving because her wounds aren't fully healed. Yuya thinks about how hard he hit her, so he agrees with the request. But as she eats it, she smirks at Lexia, who also gets jealous, and demands to be fed as well. Yuya says she isn't injured, but Lexia uses her authority as princess to command him, and he has no choice but to comply. At night, the girls sleep together, and Yuya is exhausted, but thinks it was a good time. The next day, they meet back up with Owen and his men, and Yuya apologizes for leaving him behind. Owen wonders about their companions, and Yuya introduces Knight once again. Owen thanks him for saving Lexia the previous day, and he goes on to wonder about Luna's identity. Lexia bluntly explains how she was an assassin that tried to kill her, but will now be working as her guard. Everyone is shocked hearing this, and Luna can't believe how quickly she revealed her secret. Owen immediately has her surrounded, but Lexia tells him to stand down. Owen refuses, saying she can't be trusted, but Lexia mentions how they slept together, so if Luna wanted to kill her, she would already be dead. Owen eventually gives in, but says they will keep an eye on her. Yuya suddenly interrupts, saying he can no longer go with them to the palace, since they spent an extra day back at the house. He doesn't have the time to make the trip, thinking he needs to go back to school. So Owen tells him to visit whenever he gets the chance, telling him he can follow the road to a village, where he should be able to get directions to the capital. Lexia says goodbye to him, telling him to visit soon, but Luna suddenly runs back to Yuya, giving him a kiss, and thanking him for everything he has done for her. Lexia is devastated, demanding to go back so she can also kiss him, but Owen just pretends not to hear her, and continues on their way. Yuya thinks about the kiss, wondering if she likes him, but he ends up taking a bath to relax. He suddenly realizes there is a strange creature that snuck in, and he gets a notification saying he has just tamed it. The creature is confused by this, but finds it acceptable, and Yuya thinks about checking its stats, but he finds his appraisal skill has leveled up, allowing him to see the skills that it knows. He sees that it has a skill called Holy Ground, and asks to see what it can do. The creature creates a field of light around them, and it seems to give Yuya a buff. Yuya is impressed, and decides to give it a name. Looking at its appearance, he decides to call it Akatsuki. Knight reminds him about the time, and Yuya quickly rushes back to school. During their class, Sawada announces they are having a ball game competition, with the results affecting her bonus, so she tells them to do their best. The first event is soccer, and their class is divided up into 2 teams. Yuya plays as goalkeeper, since he doesn't really know the rules. When the game begins, Ryo is a beast, taking on the opposing team by himself, and managing to score. Kaide is impressed, but Rin tells her they have a second secret weapon, telling her to jump. As she jumps up and down, all the guys are distracted, and Akira manages to steal the ball from Ryo. Akira has a morale boost, and Rin realizes her plan backfired. Akira gets past everyone, shooting his shot, but Yuya stops it in an instant, and everyone is shocked at his movement. He wonders what he should do with the ball, and Ryo tells him to just throw it as hard as he can. So Yuya gives it a go, and ends up throwing it straight into the other goal, wondering if he's scored a point. After school, Yuya gets approached by a modeling agency, inviting him to join the industry, but he quickly declines. The chief is shocked he isn't interested, but Yuya says he is already enjoying himself at the school. Miyu shows up trying to convince him as well, and his friends are shocked by how he knows the model. Yuya explains he just happened to work with her once, and they are shown the cover of an upcoming magazine where they are together. A poster for their sport competition suddenly lands near them, and Kaori comes chasing after it. But the chief suddenly gets an idea, thinking they could do an article on the school and photograph Yuya through the event, so she leaves to go and get approval from the school. In the other world, Yuya defeats a skeleton monster, but he thinks he hasn't been able to get any stronger. He decides to head even deeper into the forest, and he finds an area filled with hard black trees, which are extremely tough and unable to be even scratched by normal attacks. He suddenly wonders how Akatsuki got so big, but Akatsuki is actually behind him, and he gets attacked by a mithril boar. Yuya tries to heal himself, but the boar attacks him again. He thinks he is in trouble, and the boar charges at him, but the boar is suddenly sent flying, as a strange rabbit suddenly appears. It introduces himself as Usagi, and Yuya is surprised it can talk. The boar gets back up, but Usagi destroys it in an instant, and Yuya is shocked at how he even destroyed the surrounding trees. He checks out its stats, and sees he is insanely strong, with all kinds of titles. Yuya thanks him for his help, and the rabbit asks him to show him his kick. Yuya demonstrates his kick, and Usagi sees potential in him. Usagi shows off his kick, blowing a hole through multiple trees, and he starts training Yuya to do the same. After a while, Yuya manages to destroy one of the trees, and he moves on to sparring with Usagi. Yuya wonders why he is being trained, and Usagi reveals it's because he wants him to be his successor. He explains that he is known as a divine, and it's his duty to pass on his techniques. He reveals that divine is a title given to those who have mastered a certain field, and he is the divine kicker. Their job is to protect the world from the vile, who are beings that are the manifestations of the negative aspects of the world. Yuya wonders if he has a choice in becoming his disciple, and Usagi tells him he can refuse, but he mentions the fight against the vile is inevitable, so they need as many allies as possible. Yuya prefers not to become a divine, but he thinks about how he wants to be able to protect Night and Akatsuki. Usagi decides to continue training him anyway, but asks to learn magic from him, since he is impressed by the barrier around his house, although Yuya thinks about how that was just the sage's work. But they come to a deal, where they will exchange knowledge. We see Yuya as he gets chased by a King Mithril boar. Usagi thinks it's a good chance for Yuya to have a rematch. Yuya struggles against it, but using his kicks, and together with his whip, he manages to defeat it. Yuya celebrates his victory, and finds it dropped a number of SS ranked items. Usagi explains that there are triple S ranked and EX ranked monsters in the world, and the vile are even stronger at the legendary rank. Yuya suddenly gets a notification about evolving, and he suddenly starts to glow. His appearance doesn't change, but it seems he has gained a number of new skills. The next day, Yuya takes part in the table tennis competition, and the chief tells him to put on a good show for them. His opponent is actually the national champion known as the Sniper, and he delivers a devastating serve that even Yuya misses. But comparing it to the boar he faced, Yuya easily returns the next serve, even making a hole in the table, but he forfeits the match, not wanting to injure anyone, and the photographers complain he moved too fast for them. Kaide drags Yuya off to play volleyball, because one of their members got injured, and the chief follows after him. As the match begins, everyone is left shocked, as the ball pops, and the court is completely destroyed. The opposing team instantly gives up, and the chief finds they missed the shot again, because the photographers were distracted by something. Kaide comforts Yuya, saying a win is a win, and they suddenly hear a scream. They see Kaori, and Yuya wonders what's going on. We see her teammate getting carried away, and he warns Yuya to watch out for the serve. Yuya takes his place in the tennis match, and his opponents tell him he is also going to be needing medical attention. The match continues, and Kaori serves. It narrowly misses him, landing outside, and Yuya tries to encourage her. She serves again, but throws her racket this time, and Yuya realizes the other student was actually taken out by Kaori. Knowing this, Yuya takes over the game, taking every shot, and he carries the game. Kaori tries to be helpful, but she ends up throwing her racket again, and almost falls, but Yuya catches her, and the chief is finally able to get a shot. At the end of the day, Kaori walks home with Yuya, thanking him for his help. She wants to treat him to some food, but Yuya says he is just happy being with her, so there is no need to thank him, but Kaori ends up kissing him instead. Meanwhile, we see Usagi as he fights against one of the vile. Usagi defends himself with magic, and the girl finds this surprising, because he shouldn't be able to use magic. He thanks Yuya for teaching him, and the girl reassesses her priorities, deciding Yuya is a greater threat, so she leaves to find him and deal with him first. The agency chief looks over their next issue, and she is happy with all the photos of Yuya. She thinks about how well the magazine will sell, but her subordinate worries the other agencies will all be after Yuya once they see it. However, the chief isn't worried, and she seems to have a plan to make sure Yuya won't be able to refuse joining their agency. Back at Yuya's house, Yuya and Kaori study together. Yuya thanks her for helping him with his math, but she says it's no problem, since he has also been teaching her English. But Yuya just thanks his language comprehension skill that makes English easy for him to understand. In a flashback, we see the two walking home together, and we learn their exams are coming up. Yuya is worried about how he will do, and Kaori is surprised there is something he isn't good at, so she was the one who suggested they could study together. She meets Akatsuki for the first time, and she finds both his pets cute as they sleep. She asks to use the restroom, but after she leaves, Yuya wonders if she will be able to find it. Kaori ends up in front of the door to the other world, and Yuya comes after her. Kaori says she felt like she was being called by the door, and Yuya gets nervous. He explains that the door connects to another world, and he tells her to try putting her hand through the door. Her hand is stopped by a barrier, and Yuya explains that only people he allows can get through. Kaori wonders what the other world is like, and Yuya explains it's a world of monsters and magic, showing off how he can use magic. Kaori is amazed, and Yuya explains it was all thanks to the other world, where he learned skills which allowed him to deal with the delinquents that attacked the school and save everyone from the fire in the department store. Kaori finds it unbelievable, and Yuya offers to show her around in the other world. He takes her hand, and the two cross over to the other world. Kaori is surprised to see there really is another world, and Yuya tells her that both Night and Akatsuki come from this world. He explains Night is a Fenrir, which is like a wolf, and Akatsuki is kind of like a pig, but Akatsuki gets offended hearing this. Kaori's status window suddenly appears, and Yuya explains that ability in this world is represented by stats. He is surprised to see her starting stats are much higher than when he started, remembering how he only had 1 point in every stat. He explains how he leveled up in this world, and how his appearance completely changed because of it, so he feels as though he cheated, and he wouldn't have been accepted by everyone otherwise. But Kaori changes the topic, asking to see more of the world. Yuya mentions that it's dangerous outside the barrier of his house, but agrees to show her more some other time. She makes him pinky promise, and Yuya asks her to keep his secret, making her feel as though they share a special bond, and she starts to feel closer to him. Meanwhile in the capital, Lexia returns to the palace, and the king wonders why Yuya is not with them. Owen explains their plans had to be changed, and the king wonders if it had something to do with Luna. Luna immediately admits she tried to assassinate Lexia, and the king grabs his sword, preparing to execute her. He lunges at her, but ends up stopping, and he acknowledges her skill, because she realized his sword has the ability to cut through anything that tries to stop it, so she stopped his arms instead. Lexia gets angry at her father, telling him it was her decision to take her as a guard, and says she will hate him if he hurt her. The king is devastated hearing this, and he ends up recognizing Luna as one of Lexia's guards. After that, the king asks Owen more about Luna, and he explains how she was known as the headhunter for the Dark Guild. The king wonders how things relate to Yuya, and Owen explains that Yuya was the one who caught Luna, and how he took Luna and Lexia back to his house. But hearing how Lexia stayed over in a man's house, he starts going on a rampage, thinking of how he wants to cut Yuya down. Owen tells him nothing happened, but the king says he can't be sure since he wasn't there. Meanwhile, we see the masked man that once tried to kill Lexia. We learn he is actually the first Prince Rhaegar, and his subordinate tells him about how a supporting noble hired Luna to assassinate Lexia, but it ended in failure because of Yuya, and she even turned into Lexia's guard. His subordinate also mentions how Yuya was invited to the palace, and this gives Rhaegar an idea. He gives the man his secret weapon, a magic sealing barrier, which can disable all magic within its area. It will make all the magic users that guard the king powerless, and then the only people they would need to deal with would be Owen and Luna. His man worries they will be exposed if the plan fails, but Rhaegar thinks they would be able to pin it on Yuya when he visits. Yuya gets an extra day off after the academy's competition, so he prepares to visit the capital. He does some farming, taking out a sheep monster, which drops a number of items, including a rare bedding item, that magically provides the best sleeping experience. Yuya heads to the nearby town, and he is surprised to see there are cat girls in this world. He heads to the guild, looking to trade, because he doesn't have any money in this world. The master finds his name strange, and doesn't recognize where he is from. Yuya explains he is just from a small island, and the master thinks he must be a noble based on his appearance. Yuya swears he's just a regular guy, but the master finds it hard to believe. The master wonders what he wants to sell, and becomes amazed when he sees Yuya's item box skill. Yuya takes out a bunch of peppers, and the master is instantly amazed by the glass. He examines the peppers, and finds it to be the highest quality he has ever seen, but Yuya thinks it was just average pepper from the local shop. The master offers to buy it all for 100 gold coins, and Yuya wonders if that is a lot, admitting he doesn't know the value of the currency in the kingdom. The master explains that an average family could live comfortably on 5 gold coins for a year, so 100 gold would be enough for a whole family to live for 20 years. The master also gives him a guild card that can be used for identification, and Yuya asks about how to get to the capital. The master tells him about the stagecoach that goes straight to the capital, and when he gets there, Yuya is amazed by just how many people there are. Akatsuki points over to the palace, and Yuya starts to get worried, thinking he will be out of place. He heads to the palace, and he is received by Owen. Owen tells him they are going straight to see the king, and Yuya panics, thinking he is not ready, but Owen tells him not to worry, because it's only an informal audience. We see Lexia and Luna waiting inside the chamber, and Yuya pays his respects to the king. The king instantly brings up how Lexia proposed to him, and he starts to lose it, thinking Yuya seduced his daughter, but Owen manages to calm him down. The king is not impressed, because Yuya didn't come with any gifts for Lexia, so Yuya quickly pulls out the bedding set he got from the sheep. Lexia is flattered seeing it, but it seems to make the king mad, who thinks he is trying to seduce his daughter right in front of him. Owen tries to stop the king, saying Yuya isn't aware of their customs, and Yuya wonders what's going on. Lexia explains that giving bedding as a gift means you want to marry that person and share a bed with them. Yuya realizes he messed up, and the king prepares to cut him down, but they are suddenly attacked by assassins. The king orders his guards to fire, but one of the men activates the magic ceiling barrier, stopping the arrows. The assassins attack, but Yuya beats them up, and together with Knight, he easily takes them all out. Lexia hugs onto him and praises him, but Luna gets jealous and tries to pull her away, while the king glares at Yuya. Owen discovers a particular emblem on one of the assassins, and they realize the first Prince Rhaegar was the one who was behind the attack. News of the attack is spread among the guards, and it seems the king has since isolated himself in his room. Yuya thinks about what he should do, and we see Owen asked for his help to keep Lexia safe, so Yuya goes looking for Lexia, hesitating to enter her room, but Lexia suddenly comes out, and she suggests they should go around the capital since it's his first time there. Luna reminds her of her situation, but Lexia reasons if her brother were to send any more assassins, he would be giving up his own location. Luna agrees with her assessment, but she knows Lexia is really just trying to get outside. Luna tells her she should stay in the castle, while she can be the one to show Yuya around, but Lexia refuses, not wanting to let them be alone together. Owen suggests he could be the one to show Yuya around, while they can both stay in the castle, but the two girls both reject his idea. In the end, both the girls end up going, while Owen watches from a distance. Lexia wants to show Yuya the jewelers, but Luna has other suggestions, and the two girls fight over him. They cause a commotion, and the people around start looking at them, thinking Yuya must be some kind of noble, having two beauties with him. They look around the city, and it seems Yuya is interested in the Adventurers Guild. He mentions how he registered with the Merchants Guild while on his way to the capital. Luna suggests he should register for the Adventurers Guild as well, since he goes hunting more often, saying it will make it easier for him to trade monster materials, and he can make some money from taking quests. Luna decides to register as well, wanting to go on a quest with Yuya. Lexia doesn't like the idea, but Luna suggests she could register as well. Lexia complains about them being together, but Luna tells her not to worry, because Yuya will probably be too busy to take quests with her. They meet the clerk Emilia, who hands them their application forms. Yuya starts filling it out, but there is a question about what magic he can use. He thinks about how the sage told him that common knowledge about magic isn't as advanced, so he decides he shouldn't mention he can use all types of magic, as well as teleportation magic, so he just puts down wind, fire, and water. The next question is about magic power, and Emilia explains they use a crystal ball to measure a person's magical energy. Yuya wonders why they don't just look at their status window, but Emilia explains most adventurers keep their stats a secret, so this is to make sure no one is lying. Luna measures her energy, making the ball glow yellow, but she comments she has never been good with magic. Yuya measures his energy next, but everyone is shocked when the ball is shattered. Emilia thinks it could be a mistake, so she decides to test him again, but the result is still the same. Yuya apologizes, wondering if he needs to pay, but Emilia tells him it's okay. Emilia looks over their applications, but she becomes shocked when she reads he can use 3 different types of magic. Yuya wonders if there is a problem, and Emilia explains that being able to use 3 types of magic already puts him in the realms of the people from their fairy tales. Lexia thinks he is amazing, and Yuya is just glad he didn't put down all the other magic he can use. Emilia puts their applications into a machine, and it produces their guild cards. Emilia explains that as new adventurers, they start out as F-ranked. Yuya wonders if there is a requirement for completing quests, but Emilia tells them they are free to go at their own pace, but she warns them that for item gathering quests, they have to be careful not to overharvest the plants so they are able to grow back. The group checks out the quest board, wondering what they should start with, but Yuya suddenly gets approached by a woman named Glenda. She says she wants to team up with him after seeing him destroy the measuring crystal, but the girls try to pull her away, saying she's had too much to drink. The woman leaves, but she hopes to see Yuya again. Lexia rethinks joining the guild, thinking she needs to protect Yuya from other women. But Luna tells her to think about Owen, who already struggles to control her. They head out into the field, and their first quest is to gather some herbs. Yuya is surprised his discernment skill even gives him harvesting instructions. Luna finds it tough, trying not to damage its roots, and Lexia is just glad to get away from everything. She proposes a competition with Luna to see who can gather the more valuable herbs, and the winner gets to go on a date with Yuya for a whole day. But Owen reminds them not to overharvest the area. They all leave to start looking, and Yuya is left alone. He manages to find a mana healing plant, and Akatsuki tries to help him, but he just finds one that's extremely poisonous. The girls return with their herbs, and Yuya starts examining what they harvested, but Owen suddenly comes rushing over, saying they have discovered the location of the first prince, and he asks Yuya for his assistance. Lexia and Luna are left to head back to the castle, while Yuya and Owen head on their way. They arrive at an abandoned house, and things seem quiet. Owen suggests the prince might already be captured by earlier soldiers, but as they enter the house to check it out, a knife instantly hits one of the soldiers. They find the prince threatening the life of one of the guards, but Yuya sends Knight, who is able to save the man. Owen has him surrounded, telling him to give up, but the prince refuses as he slashes at them. He suddenly threatens to end his own life, thinking he is worthless, and Owen doesn't know what to do, but Yuya instantly approaches to stop him. The prince tries to attack him, but he ends up getting knocked to the ground. Owen thanks Yuya for his help, and they prepare to take the prince away, but there is suddenly an explosion as the house is blown open. The prince is relieved to see the girl from the vial. However, she analyzes the situation and determines he has failed, so he is no longer needed. The prince is shocked hearing this, thinking she wanted to help him become king, but the girl reveals her real plan was to use him to start wars and kill as many people as possible. The prince realizes he was tricked, and the girl prepares to finish him off. Owen tries to save him, but he suddenly gets stopped by an arrow. Yuya wonders where the arrow came from, but the girl starts bombarding them with more arrows. Owen wonders what she is after, and the girl reveals she is trying to wipe out all of humanity. The knights struggle against the arrows, and it seems the girl also has the ability to predict their movements. The girl prepares to finish them off, but Yuya uses his magic to blow all of the arrows away. Owen thanks him for saving them, and the girl realizes that he is the Yuya that she is after. She wants to fight him, but she notes she has already used up too much of her power, so she decides to retreat for the time being. The prince is taken in, but Yuya is left wondering about the identity of the girl. Rhaegar is brought before the king, and the guards take off his mask and clothes, revealing his body which is covered in scars. Lexia finds it hard to look at him, and we learn she is actually responsible for his injuries, because she once lost control of her magic, and he ended up getting caught in it. He eventually went mad after being showered with Lexia's magical energy, and he developed an urge for destruction, and the only way to suppress the urge was to cause even more damage to his body. He blames the king for not helping him, and even isolating him from the public, because he was no longer fit to be the first prince. He was treated as if he didn't even exist, and Yuya seems to be able to relate. Rhaegar just wants his suffering to end, and he begs to be killed. Yuya suddenly interrupts, saying he might be able to help, and he takes out his healing juice. Rhaegar tries to resist at first, but his scars end up being completely healed. Everyone is shocked, and Rhaegar quickly looks in the mirror. He can't believe he is healed, and Yuya explains his juice is made from the cure-all herb. The king is shocked by this, because it is actually a legendary herb, and he thanks Yuya for using such a rare item to heal his son. but Yuya tells him not to worry, because he actually grows it in his garden. Rhaegar starts laughing, thinking that even though he is healed, he is still facing a death sentence. Lexia wonders what crimes he committed, and the king says he made multiple attempts on her life. Lexia says that since the crime is against her, she decides to just pardon him. The king says it's not that simple, saying Rhaegar also attacked him, but Lexia insists that he forgive Rhaegar as well, and the king ends up agreeing, so Rhaegar manages to avoid his sentence. After this, the king considers Yuya's reward. Lexia suggests her hand in marriage, and Luna also offers to marry him. But the king ends up giving him the title of Lord Knight, as well as giving him land and a mansion. Yuya heads to his room to rest for the night, and he instantly falls asleep. However, he dreams about fighting against the mysterious girl, but he is defeated and he suddenly wakes up. At school the next day, his friends ask him to hang out, but he rushes off after class, even running past Kaori. As he runs home, all he can think about is the mysterious girl. He heads back into the other world, training as hard as he can, so he can be prepared for a fight against the Vile. Knight senses something, and they are suddenly attacked. The girl appears, and Yuya wonders why he is being attacked. The girl reveals she is after revenge, and he is someone who could get in the way of her plans. Meanwhile, we see Kaori visiting his house, wanting to study with him. His door is open, so she lets herself in, and she looks around the other world, hoping to find him, but she suddenly hears explosions in the distance. The girl launches her arrows at Yuya, but he charges at her, together with Knight, and he manages to land a kick on her, with Knight following up. The girl is impressed by him, thinking she needs to take him out before he can get any stronger. She starts shooting at him, and Yuya notices Kaori in the area. She freaks out, and Yuya tries to shield her, leading to an explosion. The girl prepares to finish him off, firing her strongest attack, but Yusagi suddenly appears and stops the attack. He apologizes for being late, saying he was doing some investigating, and he has learned that the girl's name is Yuri. He also discovered she is actually the Divine Archer's disciple, and Yuri reveals her master was killed, so she is looking to get revenge for him. She claims Yusagi only appears when it's too late, when her master always protected the humans, but he was eventually betrayed by them. Yusagi says it's their job as divines to fight against the Vile, and he says that using their divine skills to destroy the world is against the covenant they have with the planet, but Yuri says she only inherited the divine skills from her master, but never took on the title as a divine, so she is not bound by the covenant. They continue to fight, and Yuya copies the move Yusagi used to save him, creating an opening, and Yusagi lands a kick on her. Yuri refuses to give up on her revenge, seeing humans as worthless, and she starts using the power of the Vile. She lets off a scream, and Yuya can barely hold his ground. She charges at Yusagi, and the two exchange blows. Yusagi takes a hit, and things are looking bad, but Akatsuki suddenly starts running over to the fight, activating his Holy Ground skill, and it takes away Yuri's power, giving Yuya the chance to knock her out. Yusagi mentions that besides the divine, there are also holy beasts that stand against the Vile, and Akatsuki seems to be one of them. He says Yuri shouldn't be able to use her Vile powers again, so he decides to leave her to Yuya to handle. Kaori rushes over, but there is suddenly a monster behind her. Yuya takes it out with a single shot, and Kaori is in shock. Yuya explains that this is how his life is like in this world. He wonders if she is scared seeing him kill in front of her. He admits to leveling up in this world, thinking he is a cheater, and that she wouldn't like him otherwise, but she says that that's not true, saying he hasn't changed at all since the first time she was saved by him, saying he has always been kind, and that she has liked him ever since that first meeting.